Powered by Riverside.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Devin Price, and this is the Talking Tech podcast show. During the day, I am a professional technologist and cybersecurity professional that helps organizations manage security risks. Now, I've been in the technology space for a number of years now, and during that time, I've had the chance to talk with various people about their various tech-related career journeys, as well as their aspirations to pivot into the tech industry. And so at this point, I've decided to create a space and a platform for other people to be able to listen in to those previously private conversations. If you're interested in being a future guest on the show, comment on this video and we'll talk. So in this episode, I have Kenneth Ellington, and we're going to talk about what he's been up to in the tech space at this point in his career. But before I speak with him, I'm going to read off his bio so everyone gets a sense of where he's coming from and what he's already accomplished. So Kenneth is a graduate of the University of South Florida 3 times over, earning a concentration of cybersecurity, minor of business management, and a bachelor's degree in business analytics and information systems. Kenneth has also taught at various universities, such as the University of Houston, as an associate cybersecurity instructor. He has worked and consulted at numerous Fortune 500 companies such as Publix, DTCC, which is short for the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, as well as Ernst & Young. While working full-time currently as a cybersecurity consultant at Ernst & Young, Kenneth also functions as the founder and lead security coach at the Ellington Cyber Academy, or ECA. At the Academy, Kenneth helps cybersecurity professionals gain hands-on experience with SIEM and SOAR technology so they can advance in their career, increase their salary by $40,000 or more, and boost their confidence using his signature program, the Cyber Career Boost program. Kenneth, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Pretty good. I appreciate you having me on today, Devin.
Of course. I've been looking forward to talking with you. I know previously I would have had you on earlier, but I had another guest that I wanted to that reached out to me first. So I'm glad that we were able to get you on. So I always like to start from the beginning of somebody's career and just kind of work our way forward. So with you, and one of the questions I always ask is from everybody is, when did you learn or figure out that tech might be something you wanted to do professionally? Was that like always a desire that you had like growing up, or did that occur when you attended UCF or when you were in school? Like when did that like, hey, I might want to be in tech? When did that idea like pop in your head?
That happened when I was in college. Initially, I wanted nothing to do with technology. That was awful,
Really?
honestly. Wanted absolutely nothing to do with that. That was extremely boring. So I actually did business management.
Yep.
Going from HEC, which is community college, back home in Tampa, to going to USF. So that was my major initially. So my dad's actually a software engineer. He's been one for the past like 26 years now.
Nice.
And initially, he tried to get me to do programming back when I was like in middle school. So he had me do a Code Academy course back like in middle school there one summer. And I thought it was the lamest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I basically told him, I'm like, Pops, so you're telling me you type on the keyboard all day and people pay you thousands of dollars to do that? I'm like, that's the stupidest thing ever. Why would I ever want to do that? So I didn't do anything tech related all throughout my high school career. So it wasn't until my junior year of USF that I decided to do IT. I wanted to like kind of niche down. And I asked my dad, I'm like, I'm doing business management. I kind of want to niche down. I'm like, so what should I do? He's like, how about IT, Kenneth? I'm like, that's a great idea. I'll probably do that then. So that's what I did. And from there, it was kind of by chance, I got my interest kind of peaked from cybersecurity perspective. So I worked at public supermarkets all throughout college. Anyone that lives like in the Southeast, that's where you shop at. It's like the best place ever. So I worked in the deli, making sandwiches, fried chicken, like all throughout college. And one of the things I tell my students, all my clients, is make sure people know what your desires are so they can speak on your behalf when you're not inside of their room. That's super important. So I told anybody and everybody that wanted to listen towards me that I want to do IT.
Okay.
Right, I'm moving forward. So my store manager, Laura, at the time, told me, she said, "Hey, Kenneth, the director of cybersecurity for Publix is coming towards our store in a couple of weeks. Do you want to meet him?"
Wow.
I'm like, yes, of course. So she set up a meeting between me and him. He literally sat me down in the back office. He went over like what cybersecurity at Publix is.
Wow.
Honestly, I just thought Publix sold groceries. I didn't know we had a cybersecurity department. I honestly didn't know what cybersecurity was back then.
Mm-hmm.
But he explained to me like what it was and what's important. And he's like, Kenneth, he's like, I want you to be on my internship team next year. Wow. He's like, he told me that, but I couldn't be on it that year because it was June, so they already had some staff with them. He's like, Kenneth, you can do these step-by-step instructions that I give you, like go to certain conferences, get certain certifications, shadow my team. I can almost guarantee you a spot next year on my internship team. He's like, can you do it? I'm like, yes, sir. Of course I can. So fast forward 9 months, I did everything that he asked me to. I interview for his team, and I get the job. And that's how I got inside cybersecurity, basically.
Wow. So there is a lot there. Number one, I want to go back. My dad is actually, he's in IT as well. So I definitely get you with the, it wasn't so much I thought tech was boring, but I was like, I don't want to do what my dad did. And so like for me, it was like I was in high school and I had to do a senior project and I didn't know what I was, supposed to do it on. So I said, my dad had always been telling me, Devin, I think you'd be good at this tech thing. So I was just like, okay, fine. I'll just, do my project on tech because I didn't have anything to do and I ended up falling in love with it. So I can relate to that part of the story of like not initially wanting to do tech. And actually my backup, like what I was going to school for was business. Like I'm going to do business. And like, that was the plan. Second of all, I love what you said about whatever you're trying to, I guess, accomplish or whatever your goal is, make sure that you're vocal with the people like that are around you. Because that whole like story about meeting the director of cybersecurity for Publix, like I'm that probably doesn't happen if you are not like vocal with your manager.
Correct.
About, hey, like, this is what I'm doing right now, but here's where I'm trying to go. That's crazy. And so you said it was like a 9-month period between when you met with the director and then when he offered you the job?
Yep.
Wow. So I think, that answers, I think, probably the second question of what I was going to ask you of just like, I could see without knowing that story, I could see that you were at Publix and there was like a 4-year period, I think from like January 2016 to July 2020. And I'm guessing like during that time, did you know? So I'm assuming of those 4 years of like 2016 to 2020, because you were at Publix for about 4 years, right?
Yes.
So, and you did you have that vision all the way that I wanted to be in tech, or did that happen like you said your junior years when you're like, let me try?
So I would say mid 2018 is when I started to figure out that I wanted to be in tech. I was absolutely certain by the end of 2018. I did a boot camp with ReliaQuest, the big MSSP provider for Tampa Bay. They're their official partners of the Lightning, the Buccaneers, and the Boston Celtics for the security teams. Like when I did their boot camp, that's when I figured out I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm like, I'm going to make this happen. So that's when I was 100% sure this is a career that I want for myself.
Got you. And so that also makes sense with another question I was going to ask about, because I saw your being at UCF, like just seeing kind of the 3 different, graduations there. So I'm assuming the business, analytics and management that came first. Then I think once your dad said, hey, I think you should really try this technology. Is that when the cybersecurity came next? Yes. And then the third one there, let me just make sure I get this. Oh, that concentration. The minor in business management. So the minor in business management, the bachelor's degree. No, let me get this right. So the bachelor's degree in business analytics and information systems, that's number 1. Then you minored in business management. Yes. And then after your dad was like, hey, I think you should try this cybersecurity. Then you said you wanted to go back and get that concentration, correct? Yep. Got you. Okay. Now it's starting to make sense. because I was going to ask like what the strategy behind that was, but it's really more so an evolving story of like you finding out, okay, this is kind of what, like at each step, this is kind of where I want to pivot.
Yeah, because I already had the credits for it, so I'm like, I might as well still get it.
Gotcha.
That management piece. I already paid the money for it, so I'm like, might as well still get it.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Another question I was interested in Kenneth, is you, from what I was able to gather, you got out of school, I want to say you graduated in the spring of 2020. Is that accurate?
Yep. COVID.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I was wanted to make sure. So I was like, yeah, that is literally, if you got out, you graduated in the spring, May 2020, I'm assuming.
Yep.
So that's literally, and you started then working at the DTCC, which I'm assuming was that first full-time position.
Yes.
Right. After your internship with Publix, right?
Yes.
So take me kind of back to that moment of, COVID is going on probably 2 months. Really, I would say April, because in March, like it was still kind of like no one really knew how big this was going to get. Did the fact of like, because before you graduated, you already knew like everything was already shut down. So did that ever influence any of your decisions of where do I want to go? Of, I know I want to be, I'm assuming by that point, I know I want to like be a professional in tech, but it's like, man, like was there, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Was there like hey, if COVID hadn't gone here, like here's where I was like planning, but once everything started shutting down, maybe I reassess. Like, was that a factor at all?
That was definitely a factor. So next week, I got that job offer back in January. So before COVID happened.
Wow.
So I got it back like beginning of January. It's really funny. Initially, I didn't even want that job, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But they put a lot of money on the table, so I'm like, I can go.
Yeah.
Because they wanted me to move to Dallas, and I told my parents that they gave me a job offer. They started to cry because they weren't expecting me to actually like move all the way across from Florida to Dallas.
Right.
And it hit them like my little boy is about to like leave the state.
Yeah.
It freaked them out.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of all.
Oh yeah, that definitely hit them.
Yeah, so they're freaking out. Mom started bawling. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Mom. I'm like, I'm not dying. So that was really interesting. So initially, I was gonna keep that job until I find a better one, right?
Yeah, of course.
When COVID happened, I'm like, all right, they're not gonna pull the job requirement for me. They're still gonna say that I can still like move to Dallas eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I still kept that job. And like hindsight, I'm glad that I did. I probably wouldn't have moved out of state for a little bit longer because of that. Which I'm glad that I did.
So you ultimately did still move, like even in COVID.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I moved. What was it? Spring of February of 2021.
Oh, so like a year, man, like literally like in the heart of it.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was a very interesting time because it was like right after the election happened, and then it was election, then the winter storm in Texas. It was like I moved there like 3 days before it happened, or 3 days after it happened, so everything was still frozen over. So it was like the election and then COVID. So I met a lot of interesting people, let's put it that way.
Wow. No, that's crazy. I think I was that's a very interesting way to start your career. I think that's something that only other people probably who went through it can experience that. So while you were there, like once you got settled at DTCC, I saw that you started first working as a developer, which is funny because your dad started off with that as a software or was a software engineer. That's how you start out. That's funny. And then after a year, you transitioned over, fully into cybersecurity as a security engineer in charge of DTC SIEM. So what kind of lessons, first off, did you kind of learn from your time as a developer that you utilize now in the cybersecurity field? Or like, are there any parallels or like transferable skills that you took away from that time?
Biggest thing I realized is like I don't like development. There
you go.
That was one of the biggest things. I'm like, this is not for me. Like programming applications in Java was awful.
Yeah.
That's why I left it. But other than that, though, like the thought process of how to create applications, I think is super helpful for me.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty methodical for what you do, which is what I take when I build out some of our course creations, course content for it. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So if somebody comes in behind me, they're easily able to understand what I did. So,
Right.
which is why like documentation is a big thing as you're the software engineer, right? Because if you leave, someone needs to understand your code repository and like the functions and applications that you're trying to build out.
Yeah, very much so. I will say for me, yeah, I think I knew in college after I took uh, Java, as a programming language during semester, I was like, yeah, I respect it. I don't want to do this forever. So then once you transferred from being a developer to a security engineer, did your previous experience within that Publix security internship, did that help you um, influencing your decision to move over into cybersecurity? Like basically,
Absolutely,
yeah. Go ahead.
absolutely. That's where I fell in love with Splunk. Um, I use that every day for my job, like Splunk and Splunk ES. And I got really good at it because that's what I did for like 45 hours a week,
Right.
for like 15 weeks. So I had to kind of try to master it. That's where I fell in love with like SIM technologies, and that's where I found out that like this is the niche I want to niche down in for cybersecurity. So once I figured that out, I always was still kind of drawn towards it.
Hmm.
That's why I did training for Blacks in cybersecurity with Splunk to try to get that taste, even though I wasn't fully immersed in it. And then when I saw they opened up a job requirement for SIM engineer, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to apply for this then and see where it can take me. And I got the job and tried to stay there as long as I could and learn as much as I can. Um, was it? I think the Great Resignation or Great Reshuffling is what they called it.
Yeah.
Once that happened, I saw that they were severely underpaying me,
Hmm.
and when I asked for a raise, I kind of got told to kick rocks.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna stay here.
Right.
And so I got a better job at UI.
Okay. Yeah, that answers actually another one of my questions. So before we move to EY, what what did you have a choice, I guess, to go to the SIM team like in DTCC? Was that your choice?
Yes, that was my choice.
Okay, and that was more so just because hey, you'd already kind of had that exposure to Splunk prior. Um,
Yes.
just for like people that may not know, like, can you break down like what a SIM is, just like real, just generally?
Sure thing. So SIM stands for Security Information Event Monitoring System. So basically, all of the logs that get generated inside of different various environments. So think of endpoint logs. So let's say your phone, server, a router, a computer, cloud logs. They'll get sent towards my platform, which is like Splunk ES or Splunk. And it's our job to manage the detections, the rules, and make sure everything is as it should. Right? If there's something's wrong, it will create an alert, fire off towards our incident responders, and they'll handle it, or may store logs for compliance purposes. So it all just depends. And one of the other things is Splunk in of itself, it's not a SIM platform. It's a log
Mhm.
management platform. Splunk has a SIM component called Splunk Enterprise Security. That in itself is a SIM. So a SIM is designed for security use cases, period. It's not designed for anything else. People try to use it as like a central log repository, and they get into trouble with that, right? Splunk is used Splunk is used for data to everything, right? So that can be literally any data, business analytics, finance data, um, observability data, cloud data, whatever you want, right? Splunk ES is specifically a SIM platform.
Right. So Splunk again, just to make sure, Splunk in and of itself is not SIM, but it has a SIM uh, component.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I took that away for everybody and that everyone listening gets that. So 2 months, Kenneth, after you started at your position as a SIM security engineer at DTCC, I saw that you got an opportunity to be an associate cybersecurity instructor at the University of Houston. So how did that happen? Did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? Like what course did you get to course or courses did you get to instruct?
So they reached out to me,
Nice, big flex.
and they asked me, did they want to be like a instructor for University of Houston? I'm like, do I need a master's degree? Like, no.
Yeah,
Not
that's
for
what I want to know.
Yeah, they're like not for cybersecurity because the demand's so great.
You're right.
You don't need a master's degree to teach it.
You're right.
So they reached out towards me. I had to basically take an assessment, and then for the final part of the interview, I basically had to teach a certain topic that I felt comfortable in instead of cybersecurity towards one of the lead instructors, so they could gauge my instructing skills and how I grasp the technology and present it towards them. So I chose SIEM and SOAR because that's what I need for my job.
Okay.
And I did really well, so they hired me on. So I taught for their semesters a little bit shorter. So I think like 4 semesters basically. I taught for them.
It looked like it was about a year and a half. Yeah.
So about for 4 semesters I taught for them. So I taught and showed them cybersecurity, then SIEM and SOAR, or cybersecurity infrastructures and technologies. Excuse me. So I taught that composed of like SIEM and SOAR technologies, endpoint technologies, XDRs, things of that nature. I taught towards the students. I would say a lot of them were career transitioners. So people that were nurses or doctors or mechanics, and they wanted to get inside cybersecurity or they wanted to upskill themselves. So I taught them, and it was very interesting. There's a lot of interesting characters for some of the students. One lady for the intro class was like literally anybody could do it.
Yeah.
And you can technically take it for free. You just have to pay like a small little fee for it. And one of the ladies, she had her computer wasn't working properly, so we took a look at it. So she screen share. She had like a Chrome PC. I'm like, how do you even get that on like a desktop? Because it wasn't a laptop, it's like a desktop. I'm like, how's it even possible? So we're like, no. I'm like you can't install the software on this. So she had to drop it and get a new PC. There's another guy who he was old. I'm not gonna lie. He was like old as my grandpa.
Yeah.
He needed a lot of help. He needs like general like IT understanding. Because he's not to share his screen. He open up the camera or type in the Zoom chat box. So he needed like a lot of different help with that.
But the funny thing is, at least he was in there. Like I said, I can never knock anybody who's trying to learn.
Yeah, I was proud of him for really showing up. That's better than a lot of other students, I can say. I'm being honest. It's really weird. Even though I'm on company, when people don't show up, I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Oh, right, like show up to the class?
Yeah. And they're like, why do you get an F in this? I'm like, because you didn't show up.
My dad is actually an adjunct professor. I think he's like on a hiatus now, but he would tell me stories. I think he teaches a class like I think every spring for a number of years. And he would tell me, he was just like, yeah, it would get to the end of finals, and I would tell people from the start, I said, hey, I'm just gonna give you the grade you earn. So people would try to come, hey, can we get extra credit, or is there a remake? He said, no, we just that's the you got what you got. Like that's all we got.
It was crazy. But people, it wouldn't show up towards the exam. Then we get emails like, why get an F in this? So like, I don't understand. I'm like, well, you take the exam.
Okay. Goodness. So you got to teach at the University of Houston. That sounds like a great opportunity. I know you got into it a couple minutes ago, but like going back to being at DTCC, basically during the Great Resignation, you found out, hey, you know what? I could probably get, greater compensated for my skills. Let me look around. So then EY comes into the picture. Do you think, and you start there as a cybersecurity consultant, which is where you currently are now. Do you think, Kenneth, being or putting on that consultant hat at EY for other businesses and clients, do you think that prepared you a little bit to be a coach or an instructor as you are now at the Ellington Cyber Academy?
I would say so. You have to deal with a lot of challenging people. I do.
just like when you teach.
Yeah. So it was definitely beneficial, I would say. If you have to, as a consultant, you have to pick up things super quickly, right? A lot of times they'll already throw you into a sudden meeting or a different client environment. You have no idea what's going on. You have to figure things out on the fly. So that's been a beneficial skill that I've learned. over the past couple of years before doing this. But yeah, I would say it prepared me pretty well. 'Cause initially, I never wanted to be a business owner. I thought it'd be like an awful idea for me to do.
That's
Then
interesting.
it kind of just happened, and I've been doing it ever since, basically.
Okay. Well, let's get into that. So, looking up, just doing some research, it looks like you started the Ellington Cyber Academy about 6 months after you started your role at EY. So, I got two main questions on that. So, number one is, where did that idea for the Ellington Cyber Academy come from? I have my guesses based on what you've said, but I really want to hear it from you.
So, it came from a lot of different places, I would say, but the biggest thing, probably my dad. So my dad actually loves to teach as well, so he kind of felt that passion in me.
Right.
And I started my teaching journey, I guess you could say. I taught elementary students back when I lived back home.
Really?
So I taught at my elementary school that I went to when I was a kid. A lot of them don't have good role models that look like them. So my old teachers were like, Kenneth, you should teach for them. You should teach cybersecurity.
Oh.
And so I did. And that's where that passion really came. I saw like the amount of impact I was able to have on their lives. Like really touched my heart. That's where I started to learn how to teach. Because you can teach like 5-year-olds, you can teach anybody, honestly.
And was this before? Was this during the time you were also an associate cybersecurity instructor, or was this prior?
Prior, this was back 2018.
Okay, so yeah, like right at the start, kind of after you'd had your Publix internship, but right before or before your DTC full-time offer.
Yeah, before.
Okay, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, so the teaching has very much been there from the start. Okay, no, that's good to know. And then number two is just kind of like for anyone that doesn't know, what is the Ellington Cyber Academy all about?
So Ellington Cyber Academy, or ECA for short, we're a training provider that specializes in training people in SIEM and SOAR technology. So think of Splunk Enterprise Security, Microsoft Sentinel, Endpoint Solutions. Think of those technology stacks. We train them in that, and we help them get hired in different jobs and roles if that's what they so choose to do. So normally our programs are about 6 months long, and it's normally either one-on-one coaching or group coaching. So we'll actually take you through from start to finish. So how to use Splunk, what is Splunk, why is it important? Take you all the way from that, how to be an analyst with it, then the engineering architecture components of it. So how to design, build, scale, and solution Splunk and SIEM technologies, how to talk to clients, how to gather requirements, how to speak to stakeholders, and how to actually deploy your newly designed environment, and how to onboard data, and then everything in between for that. So that's what we try to do for the students. And then one of the cool things is our capstones. So for our capstones, I found that in college, I had to really push to gain that type of exposure to talk to hiring managers and senior personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring that inside of our programs. So what we actually do is the students actually get to present in front of the hiring managers. So we bring in different companies. So think of AWS, Accenture, Expel, Zendesk. We bring them in. The students can actually present in front of them. So the students do really well. A lot of times they'll get hired directly afterwards. That's happened to our students.
That's awesome.
Either that or they make like a lifelong connection that they can use later on in life, right, in their career. So that's one of the cool things that we do. It's worked really well, and students have really enjoyed it.
Man, that's awesome. So, and again, I'm assuming that the entire course curriculum for ECA, that was just a natural progression of, hey, I already have SIEM, SOAR and Splunk experience. I already have, a love of teaching. Why not put this together into a business that helps people?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So the other thing that I was interested in, I think you mentioned this, is like the signature course of ECA is that the Cyber Career Boost program. And I think you mentioned that it's a 24-week cohort-based course. So can you break that down, just the actual signature course? Like, what is that? I went online and I saw that the program includes 6 key steps that you take them through. Can you just give like a quick synopsis of the course?
Yeah.
Of that program.
So for the program, we try to do it holistically. So the best way I can put it is we try to make the individual the center of the entire thing, right? Because everyone's needs and everyone's desires are different, right?
Yeah.
Someone may tell me, "Hey, I want to be a penetration tester," right? So I'm like, okay, I'm like, that's cool, but you're still missing these key steps, right? So a lot of our students, even though they'll take the programs and they'll do SIEM and SOAR,
Mm-hmm.
for the actual job roles they may get, maybe something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But students have become QA engineers or consultants, right? So they're not necessarily a SIEM and SOAR engineer, right? But the skill sets and understanding of logging and monitoring environments is still applicable to whatever job roles they may get. So normally for the 6 steps that we do is first is learning how to be an analyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the foundational level. Then from a more advanced level about how to be an analyst, right? So building dashboards, building data models, building pivot tables, building alerting mechanisms within Splunk. And then we start to move on to more complicated topics such as admin architecture concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are Splunk components? So think of cluster master, license master, monitoring console, how to actually build and design those out. And we move on to the architecture components that go back towards people, processes, and technologies, right? So one of the things people I think get confused in architecting is it's not always hands-on, because if you hire someone to build a building and design it, the architect will actually design the building, right? They won't actually pour the concrete or lay the walls down, right? The
Yeah.
engineers will actually do that, right?
Correct.
And then in this case, an analyst or custodian will actually maintain the environment. So if something breaks or something's wrong, it's their job to actually respond towards it. That's the same thing we do. But normally the last step is the actual data onboarding and then the career servicing portions of it. So for the career servicing portion, that's where we bring in hiring managers,
Right.
we get their resume and LinkedIn profiles revamped, we do mock interviews for them.
Right. Awesome. And so that is that the like you have other services, other programs, but like that's the marquee one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And for just curious, I know that you recently were able to promote one of your previous students, Courtney Wright, into
Yes.
currently the current apprentice instructor right now at
Yes.
ECA. And do you have like more? Do you have plans of including other instructors as well?
Yes. So the grand goal of ECA, right? I want us to be a replacement for a master's program for cybersecurity, because I feel it's my personal opinion. Once a company is paying you to get a master's degree in cybersecurity, don't get it.
Right.
Like, it's kind of a waste of money, honestly. A lot of it's theoretical knowledge, or the knowledge may not be directly applicable to whatever job roles you may be getting from the students that I've seen.
Break that down. You said once your company is willing to pay you to go to a master's degree,
yes,
it's not. You don't think it's worth your time.
Yes.
Just, I guess, is it more so just because, hey, if they are willing to invest that much in you already, then like you have you can always learn more, but like you have the practical skills at that point.
Yes,
they're not going to invest in somebody who they don't think has the skills.
Yes, I see a lot of people, they'll get a master's degree, they don't have like any hands-on practical experience. So when I talk to them, I try to ask them to break down certain topics. They don't know how to do it.
Right.
And they may look nice on paper, but if you actually get in a room with them, they don't really know that much information.
Correct. Okay. No, I understand that. Definitely. So I'm curious, Kenneth, and just for, again, people that may not know about ECA, what are just some of like the key accomplishments that you're proud of, that since ECA has been around, that you've been able to achieve? I know you mentioned some people at that kind of hiring career fair. Some, people get offers that day. Is there any more accomplishments like that?
Yeah, I would say we've gotten about 8-9 students hired since we started, and a lot of those have gotten multiple promotions within that hiring period. So that's probably my proudest achievement, to like take somebody who wasn't able to like achieve their goals and give them opportunities, give them the skill sets to where they can take care of their families and build generational wealth. It means everything to me. Because as you know, Devin, there's a lot of people that look like us in cybersecurity, so I'm trying to like bridge that gap as much as I can. That's why I'm like so proud of Courtney and everything that she's accomplished. She's been through a lot over the past 9 months, but she's been able to push through, and she's gotten 2 promotions since she's worked with us. So just
it's not easy. 2 promotions.
It's hard, but she's been busting her ass. So I'm very happy for her.
Definitely. And one of the things, I think you answered it, I was going to ask as well. So the Cybersecurity Career Boost program, just to let people know, the actual the next 24 week cohort actually starts tonight, as far as July 12th, which is the recording of this episode. Is that correct?
Yes.
So yeah, that actually starts tonight. So anybody listening, hey, when's the next one? Unfortunately, you missed the vote, but the next one will be coming. I'm certain. So that cohort starts tonight, and it goes all the way to December 27th.
Yes. So normally how we do it is we normally do like a rolling onboarding period. So you can try to sign up every month. So we'll help you get onboarded, and we'll go over the basic fundamentals so you can kind of seamlessly slide in towards our class dates.
So is there still time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Well, you guys heard it. Go at it. One of the things I did want to mention is I saw that the entire course, the Cybersecurity Career Boost program, is $7,500. And so I was going to ask kind of how did you come up with that pricing? But I think what you said about, hey, I want this, like my ultimate goal is for this to be a technical hands-on master's course for somebody in cybersecurity, which as somebody who, I went to master's degree, and I remember what the payments were each semester. And I can tell people that is probably about 2 semesters worth from what I recall. If I was taking 2 credits, I think it was around like 3. So for anybody that's just kind of like wondering, like, man, maybe that's a little bit of a steep price. It honestly, if you're going to school, that's about 2 semesters. And most people are going to school for, if you're working part-time, 2 years. So it's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I've looked at other school prices for what they offer. And I think our stuff is still kind of undervalued, honestly, for what we give. A lot of the other schools don't have the opportunities that we have or the results that we get. So I'll put my results against anybody. You can literally ask any one of my students if they like it or not. And I'm pretty positive they'll give a nice review about us.
Yeah. And the thing I also like, Kenneth, from just looking at your website is you had a section of how do I convince my employer to pay for this? And I think there was a section of like, hey, if you want to attend this course, here's what you can kind of say to your employer to show them like what you're going to be learning. Have you seen that like be a problem at all, or have most employers seen the value in it?
I would say most people from companies have reimbursement policies for these type of things. Will pay it. It's normally not an issue for the most part, unless there's like budget constraints because of layoffs, just things of a nature. But other than that, though, we've had a couple of students use the reimbursement for it.
Okay. Also saw, Kenneth, that with ECA, you have a couple of brand partnerships, one with Textual Consulting and another with Needle Finder Recruiting.
Yes.
ECA is I don't even believe ECA is 2 years old yet.
No, we're only 14 months old, I believe.
14 months, already 2 brand partnerships. So I know that you've been on a number of heavy-hitting podcasts that I subscribe to myself. Hacker Valley Studio, Cyber Life, Textual, Security Confidential. So I'm assuming the brand partnership with Textual Consulting came from you being on the Textual podcast. But I was curious about Needle Finder Recruiting Partnership. How did that come about?
So I've known Emmy. Emmy's founder and CEO of the company. I've known her since my college days. Okay. I think she actually tried to recruit me for one of her companies that she was working for. She wasn't able to get me like a lot of the people weren't. So we still stayed in touch, and we actually started companies like almost the same exact time. And so I wanted somebody that I trust, that I put the candidates first. And she was the perfect person. So we have like a partnership. So she helps some of my students if the roles align with what she's looking for their companies, and she'll help get them placed. So she's been doing it for a decent amount of time. She's really good at her job. She's more than happy to go the extra mile to help our students, and that's what I'm always looking for my team.
Nice. Love the partnerships and people working together to make this work. Last thing before, or second to last thing before we wrap up, I was curious. I saw that within the last 3 or 4 months, you started creating more video content for ECA in the form of a bi-weekly video newsletter. What was kind of, I guess, the strategy behind that? Was that just to to scale the message of ECA further? Like what was the move behind that?
So the move behind that is to create more free content for those people that may not be sure about who I am, right?
Right.
And maybe be some random brown kid to them. They don't know like what I have to offer, things like that. So try to build that brand authority so people associate my name with like Splunk and SIM.
Right.
So the minute they hear my name, they're like, all right, I'm like, I trust Kenneth. I don't have to like jump through all these hoops. Let me go purchase his offering.
Right.
So that's why we start to create more video content. Start to do like a bi-weekly newsletter as well, along with the video. So it's been growing slowly, but it's been growing. We were at like 0 subscribers when we first started, like anything else, right?
Yeah.
But we've been growing slowly.
Okay. No, that's I like that. It's a nice goal. So Kenneth, as we wrap up, I know we talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that you wanted to say or cover that we didn't cover so far?
The last thing I would probably say, and I tell everybody this, I always post about this, is know your tribe and build a proper one. That's probably the biggest hindrance towards people. People will surround themselves with people that don't really care about them and that aren't trying to grow. And then they wonder why they're like stuck in the same place, right? Because you ultimately are who you spend most of your time with, right?
Right.
The people you spend your time with don't want to be successful and don't take care of themselves, then that's how you probably act, right? So find people that truly care about you beyond their own self-ambitions, and you'll be in pretty good shape.
Okay. Well said. Well, Kenneth, thanks for coming on the show. And thank you to everyone that's watching. Until next time.
Appreciate it.